Hey y'all, I think you're gonna like this conversation. I caught up with our guest as he was going through a change in his life. Just getting out of a throuple, trying to move forward in his career, and really in the midst of figuring out what will set his life up for long term happiness, satisfaction, and fulfillment. And I think that a lot of the queer community is in this same space, the same place. And the process of trying to break through and get to where you want to be makes for a conversation that I think you'll really enjoy. Later, if you want to discuss this conversation with others, please go to patreon.com/bottomlesscoffee and become a free or paid member. Hey everybody, welcome to Bottomless Coffee Podcast. I am Alpha Klimt. This is our very first live, in-person podcast as distinct from the show. We're with Simon Goettl today.
Hi, hello everyone. How are you?
I was really tempted to have a Jinx Monsoon moment and be like, which one's my camera? Which one's?
Sandwich. Amazing. Well, you did a great job on the setup, people. You can't see it,
Yeah.
but a lot of work.
It only took an hour and a half.
Did I help at all?
Color commentary is very helpful.
That's right.
So, we're going to be talking about gay stuff today. Surprise. But it's been really weird because the Twin Cities Quorum, which is like the gay chamber of commerce, asked me to give like a speech for National Coming Out Day.
Wow.
It was really nice. It was really sweet.
Amazing.
And then the next week, this organization P Fund asked me to speak to like young gay scholars. And I was like, okay, at this point, people are like talking about me behind my back. It's all good things. Like, I'm the person who should come and talk about being gay. And I'm like, okay, well.
That's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know everything.
Right.
I know a lot of stuff, but not everything, because our experience is like really varied. I feel like I like to use queer as kind of an all-encompassing term.
Yeah.
Because like the L, G, the B, the T, the 2, IA, plus, like it's all different. Like every letter or number has a different, or symbol with the plus. Everyone has a different like perspective.
And it can be equal parts liberating, but also a little bit of a box.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, and you're going to talk a little bit about that today.
Well, we might.
We're going to talk about relationships. Yes. And you've recently had some relationship drama. This is not a tea episode.
Yeah, no, this isn't reality or whatever that account is. No. Oh, so yeah, I've been, I'm a pretty open person when it comes to like expression of love and what that looks like and what forms relationships can take. Like I don't love a label for the part that it tells me, okay, this is what that should be and this is how it should operate. So I recently just got out of a throuple situation, which by the way was not on my bingo card. It wasn't really on my radar. It just kind of naturally, organically happened and the parties involved were like on the same page. And you believe people and you trust and you try.
Well, sometimes relationships end. I think we're going to talk about that a little bit later on.
Of course.
But was this your first relationship?
No, I think I've dated now 3 people seriously, like as an out queer adult.
Okay.
And learned something new every time.
I feel like, like so much of our experience as queer men in particular is like based around dating. It's based around sex.
Yeah.
It's sometimes based around like long-term relationships, but in a lot of cases, more often it's not. They're like shorter relationships. And again, that's like everyone's different experience. Like I've complained to you, dear audience, about my husband many times. My long-time husband. But before him, I was in a series of small relationships, some good, some bad, some toxic, some healthy. And I, as a queer of a certain age, had no plans on getting married.
Oh.
I had no. My vision when I was in like my 20s was like, a small harem. Like I just said.
Yes, absolutely.
Have you ever seen Insecure?
Yes.
They talk about the hotation. And so,
Very
you
real.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, if
Love
I
that.
want to go see a movie, this is who I'll call. If I want to get dinner, this is who I'll call.
And that's great. Yeah, that's valid.
I do occasionally miss it, but then it's no longer available. Now it's the same person that I call for every single.
That's true. Different strokes, you know?
Well, what was your dating experience like leading up to this last one?
Well, I think my first relationship was like pretty typical. Like, you get into it, you don't really know what you're doing, you let some things slide that you probably shouldn't, and there's just so much learning in that first relationship. That's what I'll say about that one.
Yeah.
Lasted about 8 months, but it felt like, 5 years.
Oh, okay.
One of those. Dated a very nice young man in the city, Antonio. Hi, how are you? We're still really good friends. And I think I kind of learned that I have a little bit of difficulty living with a partner.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if it's for me. And that was further affirmed with my last relationship, I think. Yeah, so it really just, that relationship really made me think, what is it I want? And what are my ideals and my values in life, in sex, spiritually, all that stuff.
Yeah. Do you feel like you were kind of, like, I don't know your coming out story, but do you feel like you were kind of led into immediately dating men and it being like, okay, the goal, like, I'm Simon, I've come out, and now I'm supposed to date one person, one man, and that ideally we'll get married or whatever, and that'll be that.
Yeah, so coming out, I came out as gay when I was 17, and I thought of sex as like purely penetrative. So in that sense, I was like, yeah, I pretty much just want that with men. In more recent, like literally months, I've been like, oh, I don't know if that is really accurate for me, because there are situations that I could see myself exploring with people who aren't men, and I would be into it. I don't know if penetration is part of that, but there are other things. Like, eroticism can take many, many, many forms.
And when you say not men,
Yeah.
like, again, we've got a lot of letters.
A lot of letters. A lot of letters.
So you just mean like exploring outside of the G.
Yeah, absolutely. Picture like, Trinity from The Matrix.
Yes.
Think of that hard-edged, like, but femme. Like, tie me up and we'll see what happens.
Okay.
I'd be into exploring that. Why not?
And does it matter as long as you're getting tied up? Does it not matter which letter, or is it?
I think it's all about the dynamic.
Yeah.
Sure, it could happen.
Okay.
Yeah, why not?
Do you feel like you were encouraged to explore as a young 17-year-old Simon? Like, encouraged to explore at all?
Ooh. By myself, yes. I think at that point, I had a very good inkling in terms of like what I was looking for at the time. I knew I wasn't looking for anything serious, but I was ready to just explore my sexuality at that point.
Yeah.
And that's kind of always been, my baseline is like, life is very short.
Yes.
And it is very difficult for a lot of people. And sex and eroticism, love, whatever, can feel really good with the right person or people.
Yeah,
right? So like, why, if a situation gives you pleasure, is consensual, is all these things, why would you deny yourself that?
Yeah. Kind of along those lines, and exploring like what it means to be queer and relationships, and like do you feel like you have to, like, is the intersection of queer and a relationship with someone, like who you love, is that like a necessary intersection for being queer? Because there are like asexuals.
Yeah, yeah. And maybe it's not sex, but like connection.
Well, so for 17-year-old Simon, it was penetrative.
Absolutely.
But do you know where that definition like came to you from?
No.
Okay, me neither.
I don't think so. I think that was just like, from the scope that I had at that point, I was like, well, obviously you go down this route, so I need to figure it out.
So whenever we're talking about like anti-racism or something, I'm like, I bet it's white supremacy, and so now I'm like, I bet it's heteronormativity, and this like
Probably. I
idea
mean,
of the virgin woman or whatever.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And I think, too, like, obviously, straight people go through that where they're like, okay, I have to find someone, I have to get married, I have to have children.
yeah,
And I think, too, like, probably some gay people, I think, legitimately want to parent, want to have kids, want to get married, truly. And they're
yeah,
great at it. It's great for them. And I do think there are some gay people that see that as a, well, I think I should want this because that's what's been
that's true.
modeled. And really, it's just a hot mess of a situation for them. But not, you live and you learn.
Yeah. Well, I think another intersection.
Yeah, yeah.
It's kind of a. I don't know if I don't want to slut shame. Like I used to slut shame freely
It's
in an
okay.
endearing kind of
We
way.
live in a slut shaming society. You
We
have
do.
to unlearn it.
We do.
Yeah.
But I feel like when I was coming up, there was a period of every queer man's life in particular. I would say even gay man's life where they had like a slutty period. Like I
Yeah.
come out and now I am going to have sex a lot.
Yeah, mine started at 17 and it's still going.
Okay. Woo!
And I love it.
So it's not a phase.
Not for me.
Not for you.
No, I think, the idea of a slut phase just for me personally is like, I don't know, it's just kind of like an intrinsic part of who I am. Like I do kind of see myself as not to like make it an importance thing or whatever, but I do see myself as like someone who kind of knows what they're doing and has a lot to offer. And like, I like being a sexual vessel for people to explore things. Oh, I love that. I love when someone tries something new and they're like, oh, I really like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
there you go.
Well, it's
Just
I feel
ask
like-
my ex. I really opened up his whole.
whole world. I think we're past the point of monetization. So
Yeah, period. Sorry. Send me the bill.
That's great. Well, okay then. If and it kind of sounds like either sex or not having sex is kind of an important part of like the queer identity.
Yeah.
But that's not like the entirety of our relationships.
No.
And this is kind of a thing that bothers me as like a queer in media. It's like I'm watching TV and I'm watching usually the gay guy shows up and it's like, oh, okay, who is he gonna flirt with? Who is he gonna hit on or whatever? When in my reality, there's the dynamic of family, there's the dynamic of friends, there's the dynamic of like the mentor. So when you're talking about like people exploring things or whatever, I'm like, oh, you'd be like a sex mentor to people.
Sure,
but there
sure.
are other types of mentorships as
Absolutely. And especially in media, I think, there's levels at which the general population can process people and their experiences, and we're still pretty early.
Yeah.
Like, we've made a lot of progress in terms of gays in media and how they're portrayed, but in the grand scheme of things, I still think it's pretty early. So they're like, we're opening it up. There are more experiences being shown, but there's still a long way to go. Yeah.
Well, speaking of relationships with family, what is your relationship with your family like?
It's a good question. So I'm the youngest of 5.
Oh my gosh.
I have 4 older sisters.
So you're,
Shocker.
so your parents also enjoyed some things.
Well, they're Catholic.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Okay, so not
So I
allowed
think
to
it's less about enjoying the sex and just like we have to procreate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that definitely played a part in my experience growing up. And I wouldn't be shocked if there's like a genetic trait that makes you more inclined to be a believer or not. Because I just never had that in the church. From as long as I can remember, I always remember being a little like, seems a little fishy to me.
Yeah.
This isn't all adding up.
So even before 17.
Oh God, way before that.
Okay.
Truly way before that. But with that, I think with that kind of environment, it's a lot of image-based, everything, and it's a lot of how you are perceived by people. And so growing up, there was always a big emphasis on academics without a lot of context as for why, apart from you get good grades, you get a job in a field, and you're successful from
Yeah.
there. Spoiler alert, these days that doesn't always work. College is very expensive. Um, it did like mostly end up working for me. I'm a blessed life. I have a stable job in this economy. I
Yeah.
make more than the average person. Do I love my job? But you
I've
know,
talked about this a little bit on here
hmm
because I really want like Bottomless Coffee to like lift people up and like
yeah,
platform people,
hmm
but you almost have to have achieved a certain level of success to even be like willing and comfortable to talk about your life and your
oh my God,
experiences
yeah,
and to like dwell on your past and then like
yeah.
share it with everyone.
I hadn't really thought about that, but
Yeah,
yeah,
it's been like it's not like frustrating necessarily, but I have to find different ways of like cultivating uh, a group of people, a generation of people, I don't know, people
yeah, yeah.
who are able to come up and then share their stories.
That's so interesting.
Now, we were talking about relationships with family, friends, and whomever. And you brought up the church, and it really kind of opened up the question to me because I think what I'm really curious about is that intersection between queerness and societal perception. And you can tell the coffee's hitting.
Good. We love that. We love that.
and uh, and I feel like that feels like a really necessary intersection, maybe even more so than sex. Because I feel like sex is involved, but the way people perceive you,
Yeah.
and by people I mean people who are not LGBTQI plus,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
They exist.
seems they do, and
Oh,
that's
shocking.
okay. Now we went broad.
Yeah.
Let's go narrow into
Okay.
friends, because one thing I've noticed is that I don't hang out with a lot of straight people.
Let's talk about that. This is something that should be studied more,
Yeah.
I think. You're so right. So I'm 31. I didn't really have a significant group of gay friends until I was probably 25, 26. Shout out Aaron Minkema. He brought me into the gay kickball world.
He's such a connector.
He cannot help himself.
Yeah.
But before that, I was mostly, yeah, like straight guys. I grew up playing soccer. I'm very comfortable, like, being the gay one in that group.
Sure.
Again, like, why do I need to be the one who explains an experience to people? I don't know, but I do. Like,
Love it.
I just do that.
Yeah.
So then, 26 comes. Oh, and my straight girls love you. You helped me a lot through high school and college. Don't forget your straight girlfriends. But once I hit 26, came into the gay community here a little more, I really did a hard switch. I think I realized like I spent so much of my upbringing in my outness explaining that like gay is okay to straight people, and I don't want to do that for a while. I just want to live it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's legit.
It's a lot less stressful to be in a group of people where they just understand the references. It feels like a lot less pressure.
Yeah.
But
More in common.
yeah, but I do notice a lot of, queer people my age, younger, older, otherwise, like not as much gay friends.
Yeah.
Very comfortable in a like straight
not
environment.
as many gay friends.
Yes, you see the opposite.
Oh.
And it's very fascinating to me.
I like first. I'm gonna lean over here because your shirt flipped. It's okay.
Oh, my
There you go.
shirt flip.
I love that because I feel as though, at least in the past, there was a real concern about queer loneliness. And again, that's vis-a-vis that the way society looks at us and relationships with your church, family, whomever. And there are just so many more straight people.
True. Well, allegedly. I think there are more
Count
than...
'em.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Well, okay. I don't mean we can get into the definition of straight or whatever.
Totally.
Yeah. How about so many more people that do not identify as queer on the survey?
Fair. Honestly, yes. On the what's the census? Yeah. There.
And so I like them connecting and like having support systems. But there is something really wonderful about being in a community of queer people. It's
Completely.
so liberating.
Very liberating.
Yeah. And I think we do a really great job, shout out to us, of kind of critiquing the non-queer community. I'm like, you know what? They could do things better.
I'm happy to do it. Whether they'll listen or not, I'm happy to do it.
And I think that's something that's like a part of the queer experience. Maybe it's not necessarily like required. If you are queer, then you must critique. But I think
I
that
think
we're
it is
able
a
to
big
do it.
part of it. Like, I think people, gay people come out of the womb and they're like, that dress is hideous. No, I'm just
Oh,
kidding.
no.
But like, yeah, I think gay
But
people
maybe.
do feel, like a lot of gay people do feel very comfortable with like their opinion, their
Yeah.
vision of things, and are happy to call it out.
You're like, the church is wrong. My family needs to get it together, and that dress is horrible.
Yeah, I feel that way sometimes, for sure. Yeah,
Cute.
yeah.
Okay, let's take a quick break, I think.
Okay,
When
perfect.
we come back, we do want to explore like shame,
Oh,
but let's put a hard cut in between that. Okay, be right back. It was interesting to chart Simon's upbringing and personal exploration alongside his past relationship experience and his view of the queer community. We are all the product of our unique experiences, and yet there's a certain something that binds us together. Figuring out what that something is for an individual, for older queers, for younger queers, that's tough. I do think that we hit on something with the way that we are perceived by the dominant culture. But one thing that we didn't explore is what will hold our community together if the view of the dominant culture changes to be more accepting and inclusive over time. Something that is a literal goal of a large part of our community. Hey everybody, our show is made possible through a grant from the Minnesota Department of Health, so I'm here with a reminder. Give the gift of good health this cold, flu, and COVID season, and you already know what to do. Get vaccinated if you're able to do so. Test before you attend an event. Gather in well-ventilated areas. Spread out if you can, and if you can't, wear a mask. You know we've got to take care of each other because who else is going to do it, okay? Okay. Now let's get back to the conversation. Okay, we're back. We've got coffee. Simon had a croissant.
Yeah.
If you see any crumbs, I missed them. I apologize. So we're going to talk like briefly about shame. I don't like to dwell on shame. It's not my favorite topic.
Yeah, it's a tough subject.
Like a part of the queer experience. Does it have to be? It's my question.
That is a really interesting question. I mean, for a lot of us, it is just kind of built into coming out.
Yeah, we got to unpack that.
Gotta unpack that.
Yeah.
So, in a lot of ways, it feels unavoidable, but how you deal with that and, like, do you work on it? That is very much a choice.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Because I guess for some people, the shame can be enduring.
Really can.
Like literally traumatic. So
Yeah.
it's like very impactful. And I should just take us back up to the top of the conversation where I mentioned the National Coming Out Day speech that I gave. And my speech was like, I went to a performing arts high school, it was a magnet school for performing arts. So they, 700,000 people in the county, and they bussed in all of the dancers and actors and singers to the school, to my high school.
That sounds amazing.
It was great. And it was like, everyone's a little gay.
Right, exactly.
Like, if someone said they were straight, we were like, it's probably a phase.
Right.
You'll cry.
You're the minority here, girl.
Yeah.
for
And
sure.
So, one day my friend was just like, yeah, you're gay. And I was like, what do you mean? Because I literally had not been exposed to this idea of gay being different, let's say.
Interesting.
And she like described it, and I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I had a similar thing, but for different reasons. Because, like, in my family, we just didn't talk about sex, like,
Sure.
at all. Not even, like, do you have, like, girlfriends are not a thing that we had talked about. So, like, I just didn't even really think about it until the hormones started going abso-fucking-lutely crazy. And you're like, what is happening? You know what I mean?
Did you did you like have a crazy growth spurt? Simon's very tall.
Well, my feet have always been like clown size growing up, which was really fucking annoying to buy shoes. But yeah, I was always like pretty tall.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you didn't like hit puberty and then spring up 3 feet or something.
It was pretty consistent.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the hormones started firing.
Ugh, yeah. Like
And they
God.
never stopped.
Middle high school, you're just like the wind blows and you're like, okay.
Tape it down.
Exactly. It's
That's
ridiculous.
a lot of high school boys' experience, I think.
It's like debilitating. Yeah. I'm
glad you grew out of that part.
Thank you.
The debilitating part. You learned to live with it.
I did.
Embrace it as a strength.
It was a struggle, yeah.
But then when did the shame kick in for you, I guess?
Ooh.
You came out at 17. Was there shame before?
Oh, yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Are you kidding?
Just ignorant, not kidding.
No, because, yeah, I mean, growing up in an environment like that, I always felt other, and I didn't really know why. And then you start to put the pieces together, and you're like, oh, this isn't my community. These aren't my people. Like, oh, but this is what I've known my whole life. So, like, what's wrong with me? Why don't
you had a what's wrong with me?
Yeah, why don't I want this? Why don't I, like, what's the deal?
Okay.
That kind of thing. So, and coming out to my parents in particular was pretty painful because I thought they would have an inkling, and apparently they were super surprised.
Whoops. Had you like left them clues?
I just thought it was like, hey.
Yeah.
But yeah, my parents honestly they're a different breed. You know, it just didn't really. It wasn't like a thing in their reality.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
So it was a big shock to them.
So they're like very Catholic.
Yeah.
Were they going to like church several times a week? Kinda?
No, just once a week. They're pretty like, reasonable in that way.
Level.
Yeah, and they're interesting kind of Catholic because I think nowadays when you think about like our political climate and everything, and you think religion, you think like everything is so divisive. And truly my parents do vote like on one issue. I'll let you guess what that is. Abortion. But
I was gonna guess money, so.
Oh, well, there you go. No, but when it comes to just like general kindness and empathy, like they really are what the Bible preaches in a lot of ways, which is kind of like, I'm like, oh, that's surprising. You don't always see that. So yeah, and now we're at a place where it's just like, I don't think they'll ever really get it, but that's okay. I don't need that.
Yeah.
If I'm happy, they're happy, and that's fabulous. But yeah, with the shame part of it, it's just like, oh my God, like so much unlearning of like.
I was gonna next ask you like, 17 came out, didn't go well in terms of like the trauma.
Right. Mm-hmm.
At what point did you start like trying to resolve that trauma for yourself?
I think it was kind of like a constant practice in my late teens, early 20s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just to like building that awareness of why I'm feeling this way, and then questioning why I'm feeling that way, and is that valid? And so it really just was I've been in and out of therapy, which is please, just go to therapy, people.
Right, you should go to therapy.
Yeah. Oh, you know who you are.
You don't know who you are, but you should go.
That is true. That is so true. But yeah, just like I'm a pretty emotionally aware person, so it's just been a lot of questioning of like when those feelings come up, stop, let's think, why am I feeling this way?
Yeah.
And let's reframe.
Did you ever see Brokeback Mountain?
I did.
So I am older than you are.
Yeah.
So I got to watch it in theaters.
Ooh.
With gay friends because we have like a gay community, and because my experience with queerness was just been different, just straight up different. I say one in large part because of that high school that I went to, but also because I'm Black, and so it was never like, why am I being othered? I was like, well, it could be one of these many things.
Right, it's layered. Totally.
Like, I'm just
totally.
Keep on going with that.
Yeah.
Keep vibing. But like all of my friends were like, oh, this movie is so impactful. This movie is so real. And I was like, why? Like, this movie is so sad. What do you mean?
I mean, well, that's a whole other podcast episode. It's like, does gay media need to be tragedy always?
Well, does Black media need to be tragedy?
Seriously, are there other stories?
But I mean, I was like, these two guys like live in secret never really like come to terms with themselves
No.
in a way, and then one dies, and I'm like, oh, sorry, spoilers.
If you haven't seen Brokeback Mountain, spoiler, it doesn't end great.
It's not a happy ending.
No.
And I was like, I don't want that.
No.
For me.
No.
And if you don't want that for yourself, then you really do have to resolve your trauma.
You do.
And live like your authentic self for yourself.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of people don't ever get there because they want that acceptance from church, family, straight friends, etc.
For what?
Good fucking question.
Good question, bro. Like, for what?
They don't pay your
Who
bills, honey.
fucking cares? I'm sorry. Jesus Christ. God, you gotta get that pleasure, baby.
You do.
Again, life is short.
You do.
Why deny yourself?
Oh, that's interesting because we're coming at it from different ways. You're like, get that pleasure, which is absolutely valid.
Yeah.
And like, get that stability. Get that like, get that sense of wholeness within yourself.
And there can be both.
There could absolutely be both. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, get to stability in a couple months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, but stability does not have to be like in like a particular like rubric. You
Absolutely.
know what I mean? Like within
Absolutely.
a particular structure.
Just like love, connection, all that.
Like you are literally at a place where a romantic entanglement is dissolving, and you're just like, okay, and now we are going to like decouple ourselves or de-throuple ourselves in these ways, and we're gonna go on and on with our lives.
Yep.
And like the sticking points are pretty first world, you know.
Completely.
Like, and they're not emotional
Completely.
either.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm sure there's emotional stuff, but
Yeah.
you've got a therapist. So.
Exactly. And it's been, a month and some, which not a long time, but certainly enough to process like the worst emotions, I think.
Yeah.
So it's really like onward and upward,
Is this breakup, has there been any shame in the breakup?
That's a great question.
I am paid. I'm here for the good questions.
That's why she makes the big bucks. Maybe a little at first. Yes, because, another thing I've learned about myself in the past couple of relationships is I do know what I want. I know what my values are.
Yeah.
And certainly in this last relationship, that I don't think that was necessarily heard and received. And so it became, well, maybe I can kind of bend a little bit here for their goals and their wants. And I think I could actually make this work and enjoy it. But I don't think that was true. And that combination of like not hearing it and then acquiescing a lot of things, not a great combo. Not a foundation for joy and happiness. We'll say that.
But so what I'm hearing, I think, is the part that you are unhappy with is that you compromise your authenticity for somebody else. And you're like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I'm like, that's so healthy.
Yeah, and it can veer to shame very easily if you let it. But I've been trying to be very cognizant of that. And really, when those negative thoughts come in, you just gotta find a way to reframe and like focus on yourself.
I think that's going to be really helpful for a lot of people. And I think that that's a really great example of something I would love to see in media. Like, why can't we get like a breakup comedy with queer people? And like, they just happen to be queer. But like the comedic aspects are all of the weird stuff that happens when you break up with someone.
Right. And there are so many, I think being queer opens up like what kind of relationship dynamics you could portray compared to straight relationships. There's so much material out there.
I agree.
So much.
Okay, I say let's leave shame behind.
Please.
So
I'm over it. I'm over
people
it.
need it.
I know.
But
yes.
You don't have to live in the shame.
It's not worth your time.
So we're gonna move on after this break.
Okay, Simon really had no interest in talking about shame. And I pressed him on that because sometimes avoidance is a defense mechanism. And if we want to build a world without the shame, then we have to confront it head on. Now, Simon did not come on here to advance a world building agenda, so I appreciate his willingness to talk about it at all. But for those of us who are looking after the next generation, here's a question. What are you doing to make sure that your child has a shame-free coming out experience like mine was?
So, leaving shame behind.
Okay.
We're going to talk about something a little more uplifting, or at least, in my case, I think it's a little more interesting.
Yay!
And that's just like, how are queer relationships different, right?
Yeah.
And there's so many ways. So many ways. I mean, we talked a little bit earlier about like how straight people have this like linear path for them where it's like marriage, kids.
Yeah.
That's the game plan for you.
Death.
And I think with gay people, there's just less societal expectation of what that path needs to look like.
Yeah.
Because people are just like, oh, we don't even know what to do with them. Like, what? They can do that? And it's like, yep.
We can do whatever we want.
We can do
Which is
literally
kind of
whatever we want.
beautiful.
And that's the thing. I think a lot of people don't realize, and this is so important, if you don't take anything away today, like, you are in control of
Yes.
what a relationship and how it can function. Like, what it can look like, how it can function. You are putting those parameters and those boundaries on yourself.
Yep.
Period.
I think that harkens back to that classic relationship advice that's like, get right with yourself. Know what you want.
Yes.
Then the relationship will, then it'll fall all over you, or the relationship will come to you if you want it.
You attract the energy you put out.
That's true.
That is so true. So yeah, if you think that you're going to figure yourself out in a relationship, you're gonna
God, no.
like, girl.
Well, I feel
know
like
some
that's
of
a big
those.
part of why those like relationships with younger people don't work out, because we don't really, as queer people, we don't really start like discovering ourselves, exploring who we really are, like
delayed.
getting freedom until we're out of the house.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, if I see two 20-year-olds together, I'm not gonna like waste my time imagining them as two 40-year-olds together, because so far in my experience, it's been unlikely.
Yeah. I'm not getting you something off your wedding registry.
Now, to be fair though, in my basically heteronormative relationship, except that we're two men.
How long have you guys been together?
Almost 10 years.
Jesus Christ.
10 years apart too, so.
A literal decade.
Yeah, my husband would have been in his 20s. So, like, to contradict my literal self, it is possible.
Hey, sometimes when it's right, it's right.
And the kids are different these days, like you were saying. Like,
They are. Confidence.
yes,
Wow.
everything.
I am shocked sometimes when people come up to me in their early 20s and like, oh my God, I was not you. My 20s are like, you are confident. You really went for that. And it's like, sometimes it takes me a second to process. But sometimes it really works.
And it's nice.
really
I think
does.
it's really great that, like, because our queer experience has been different, even over decades. Like, I'm 10 years older than you.
Yes.
You might be 10 years older than them, and we can all like learn from each other.
Absolutely.
And
If you're open to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like the traditional straight model is you always learn from the people who are older than you.
Yes.
Like, I feel like the world would be, frankly, a better place. Queer critique moment. Old people learn from young people. for a
Literal
change.
skeletons in Congress.
Oh my God. Dying on the job can't be me.
Diane, girl.
I mean, this is fun. I could.
Girl, we love you. You did a lot. Don't vote before you die. Like,
Yeah.
what the fuck?
Yeah. Go, like, spend the end of your days on a beach somewhere, in the mountains if that's your vibe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The second I don't need to work anymore,
Yes.
it's over for me. It's over. It's a wrap.
And you know that. You get, like, you're at a point where you get to know that about yourself,
Thank God.
which is beautiful. So what kind of relationship do you think
Yes.
if you'll end up in one at all?
let's talk
who
about
knows?
that.
I
So-
mentioned the hotation
Yes.
earlier, so expectations might not always pan out, but
So I think people don't realize enough that there is so much validity just to having a connection with someone. it is less important what form that takes. It could be a fuck buddy that you're with for 6 months. You can get so much out of that. You can learn a lot from that person and take those learnings into whatever your next thing is. It could be, like you said, someone who, I go to movies with this person because they're so fun to do that with. So I'm very interested in those kinds of things. I'm not interested in like, where is this in 10 years? Where is this in 20 years? Like, I don't live like that. I've lived like that in the past. It has really come to fuck me in the worst way possible. It just is not how I want to live,
Yeah, I'm the opposite.
Right. Isn't that so funny?
I'm like, babe, you have to get this promotion now because if you look at the spreadsheet,
Yes.
it compounds, Aaron. It compounds.
And I'm just like, girl, if there's nothing in my retirement account when I die, that's fine.
Oh, no.
Not to say I don't put away to my 401k and my Roth. We always do that.
Yeah.
Because we learned budgeting out of what? Fear. Thank you,
that's fair.
Catholicism.
We'll have a financial literacy episode at some point.
And we need more of it because, ooh, Lord. But yeah, so, and in my last couple of relationships, I've really, I just think I'm a little bit different in how I operate and what I want. Like, I have learned that living together with someone instantly changes the dynamic for me. And that's when I start to kind of dim myself and try to be more of what that person needs and not myself, which is why do that? Yeah. Also, I find the idea of regular sex, like expected sex with someone who you live with, to be truly the least erotic thing I can think of. I hate it. I'm like,
it's not on your calendar.
You want me to do this at this time? And like get sexy thinking about that?
No, that's
good.
not for you.
It's not for me. Yeah. So I don't know. Like, that is kind of a thing though, now that I'm out of this relationship. I am kind of wondering, like, where do I fit into a relationship structure?
The things that I needed from a relationship, I'm currently getting.
Yeah.
I don't think it was intentional, but I was like very chaotic.
Really?
In my youth.
I can't picture it.
Well, if you go to Atlanta, you'll talk to people. I still come up. It's been a long time.
Ask the girls in Atlanta. Next Pride, I'll check in.
It's just like, oh my God.
Interesting.
And so my husband is like very down to earth, like almost like stereotypical small town Midwestern.
Okay.
And so he provides this structure within which I can be chaotic.
That's great.
It's been
fabulous.
Really beneficial.
Yes.
And, the tension is in all the right places. So I'm like, just let me be ridiculous.
I love that. That's great.
And then sometimes he's like, okay, you need to be the box for a change, Jerome, and I need to go do something. And I'm like, okay, that's fair. That's fair. And it's like, it just happens to work. I don't think that if we brought in another person, that it would work for me for that reason.
It's tough.
Yeah.
I mean, two people is very difficult to navigate alone. There's feelings, there's goals and wants.
Yeah.
All those things are very complicated and layered, and then you bring in a third. And at the time when we did that, it actually felt kind of like a relief because there were certain things that I got from the third that I wasn't getting from my primary, and that was wonderful and like so great. And I felt like everyone was on the same page of like, he was like, I don't want to do this if we're not all in it. And that was very reassuring to me. Yeah. So, in theory, there are a lot of good things where
there were green flags.
Exactly, where I probably overlooked the red ones.
I mean, any relationship.
There's rationalizing in any relationship.
Yeah.
But you learn.
And it hasn't been very long for you. And so maybe in the future we can like explore maybe what you've learned from the relationship.
Yeah.
That you bring into another one or don't bring into another one.
Absolutely.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. Probably won't buy property with someone ever again. It's a little complicated.
It can be. I mean, for a lot of people, that's the only way they can get property these days.
Can we talk about that? Literally, I'm going to tell my boss this next comp adjustment.
Yeah.
If it's not X money higher, I literally can barely afford like a studio in the city. Like,
That's real.
what the hell?
Yeah. Husband came back with the raise of like 5 or 6%. I was like, babe, inflation was 8-9%.
Yeah.
So this is a pay cut for you.
I'm actually making less money.
Yeah. Unacceptable.
And CEO
See spreadsheet.
and CEO who will not be named made a couple more million this year.
Right.
Because they need it. They need it.
So I don't typically get with leftist math, but 100% agree with you on this.
Math is tough.
I'm like, there's an awful lot of money at the top.
Yeah, profits seem to be higher than ever.
Yeah.
But I also didn't study math. So.
Oh.
What do I know? I'm in product marketing.
I was like, I try to follow the money. And I'm like, it's all up there.
Mm-hmm.
Either bring it down or I need to go up. Like one of the two.
Period. And we're all just trying to get ours
Yeah.
at the end of the day. Like, we're all just trying to have enough to live how we want to live.
100%.
Ugh.
But also, I feel like like in the way that queer people have a different life experience, like rich people have a totally different life experience, like where they are just disconnected from the realities down here.
Say that. Ooh, wow. Ooh, we could talk about that. I'll tell you. The things, it was funny. Not to bring in Housewives to this, but
Okay.
there's Real Housewives of Beverly Hills just premiered. So, like, really rich, typically white women. And one of them was having their therapist explain empathy to them.
Oh, real?
That was
Was that real or fake, do you think? You think it was real?
so real. So real. Watching her try to track that conversation with her therapist is like, oh God, you don't know, do you?
Oh, fascinating.
And I think there's a lot of those types of situations with rich people where you're just like, you don't know that about how people live. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then how would they? But how could they? You know.
That is fair. That is fair. You're right. It is what it is.
I mean, maybe. I guess it could be possible.
That's true.
And it's kind of their responsibility.
There are some people who are much more capable of doing that.
That's fair.
Yeah,
No matter what the income.
absolutely.
Simon, this has been wonderful.
This has been so much fun.
I know we're going to have to do it more often. I like it. I'm going to try not to take an hour and a half to set up the cameras and stuff in the future. Oh, God. I should have talked about that with Shame, though, because I feel like as gay men, we were like, okay, I need that 1080p. I need to look, what's the lighting look like?
You want to talk shame? Let's talk about me and my ability to be a homemaker and like hang up shelves and like.
Are you good at it?
No.
Can you level shelves? Okay.
I have a lot of shame, or I think I had a lot of shame about like my mechanical abilities. Now I'm just like, I don't fucking care. I can't do it. I can't change my oil, and I don't fucking care.
I used to
Okay,
be able to change oil. I don't know if I can do it anymore.
and I don't need to.
Yeah.
There's someone who'll do it for me.
That's true.
That's fine.
We have we got the house rewired, and
You didn't do that yourself.
no. But my husband, who's not bringing home the amount of money that I want him to, he brings plenty. But he didn't want to pay to have a contractor close the holes in the walls. He was like, I'll just do it myself. We are on week 5
Nope.
of him having started this project.
Nope.
And I have TaskRabbit scheduled for Monday. I was like, that is long enough.
Very similar experience with a bathroom remodel that is still going.
Oh, really?
And that's not to say that I would have done it any faster. But
Well,
like,
no, because you know you're not going to do it.
because I know I'm not going to do it. Jesus Christ. But you know what? When it's done, they're going to feel really good. They'll be like, I did it. And I'll be like, great. And that was 4 weeks behind schedule.
Oh, my God.
I'm not even going to get to enjoy that new bathroom before I move out. It's fine.
On the next episode of Bottomless Coffee, project management.
Exactly. Yeah, this is a blast. I love talking about this stuff.
Yeah. Okay. We'll have to do it more often.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Simon, the realist Simon.
That's right. And if you want to find me on Instagram, at The Realist Simon. And if you love podcasts or you love music, you gotta check out Bop or Flop.
Yeah.
I run it with my dear friend Aaron. We just, we imbibe a little bit, and maybe do a little, and then we just chat about music. It's not NPR. I will say that.
Sometimes there are NPR impressions.
There are impressions for sure.
I think you've got some tea on your podcast too.
Oh, every now and then.
Yeah.
We can't help ourselves.
Yeah. Well, thanks everybody. Bottomlesscoffeeshow.com at Jerome T. Evans. Mwah, mwah. Love and miss.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in. I am genuinely interested in hearing your thoughts about everything we talked about here today. Right now, the best way to share your thoughts with us is by going to patreon.com/bottomlesscoffee and becoming a free or paid member of the Bottomless Coffee community. Thanks all.